Hi out there, this is Cynthia Howard, and you know what that means. You are on another edition of Freedom Cast. Today is Friday, October 20th, 2017, and we are going to talk about the latest fad in the state of New Hampshire, and that is the gambling game KENO, which is being sold throughout the state of New Hampshire by state representatives to have local cities and towns adopt it in their towns, and the vote is coming up in our town, Claremont, on Tuesday, November 7th. So I want you to be aware of that. I know there was only a few people at the public hearing I spoke at last night. There's probably 6 or 7 people. So it would seem that more people would be interested in knowing that it's going to be on the ballot. And what it is pretty much a mini casino game because it's only available at pouring establishment, which means those restaurants and bars that serve alcohol. So in other words, if you go into a restaurant that doesn't serve alcohol, you would not be able to buy a ticket or play the game because it wouldn't be allowed. So I don't think that's fair, for one thing. The other thing is that in the pouring establishments, these small businesses, and most of them will be small businesses because that's all we have in our area, or fraternal organizations such as the Elks Club or like the Moose Club or Eagles Club or whatever other VFW, American Legion, and etc. Those fraternal organizations, and a lot of them are nonprofit, as well as the small businesses, will have to pay upfront cost and a licensing fee of $500. So that's quite a bit to come up with if you're a small business in a low, poor area. And not only that, but they will have to do the payouts from the beginning. In other words, the state will not give them the money up front. They're going to have to pay it out on their own, but the state will give them the money to recoup after they transact the amount that was paid out. But there may be a waiting period on that. So there's a lot of upfront cost if you are a small business. So that's one of the downsides there. It's not like you're in Manchester or Concord or a large city, Nashua, Salem, where you have access to large amounts of cash. These small businesses don't, and there's less and less people going to bars because they're afraid of being picked up for DWI or DUI, and it's very expensive to go to bars. I mean, if they have any extra money, they're probably going to go out to eat or something, but they're not going to sit at the bar, and more than likely they're not going to sit there and play a gambling game, which is going to cost a lot of money for them. So it's not a very good selling point in that aspect. And we've been using lottery tickets since 1964 in the state of New Hampshire to fund education. And the only amount it funds is approximately 27%. And that's not very much money. And in fact, as the cost of education goes up, and in some towns like Claremont, aid goes down when you have less students, then there's a gap to fill. So you either have to cut your budget so taxes won't go up, or you have to put it on the backs of the local taxpayers because the lottery revenues don't go up. The state lottery department will not pay for the gap. They're only going to fund so much, and that's what they've agreed on, and that's what they will fund. So the same thing, the same scenario will play out with this kindergarten KENO game. In other words, when they fund it by this certain percentage, which is going to be roughly around 27%, it may be 30%, and that's all they're going to pay. So if there's still a funding issue through the state, or if they have a depleted amount of children, or if costs go up, the only people that are going to pay it are the taxpayers again, or they're going to have to go back to part-time kindergarten because they won't be able to afford the programs. And that's one possibility. I know it's not going to be as large as with the overall education funding, but still that's another downside to having part in the lottery. When lottery funding is available, you're not getting that much. And to make up the funding hole, again, the taxpayers have to do that. If not, you are left with that hole. And so my recommendation last night was you're probably going to have to either privatize it. I know they have a nonprofit kindergarten center in Merrimack, or the parents are going to have to pick up the stranded cost, which may be $700. There may be a cost to pick up anyway, but between $700 and $1,800 if they want their child to be in kindergarten for a full-time day. They're going to have to pay it. Or the lottery department, the governor, is going to have to increase revenues from the lottery in order to offset any costs that we lose through stabilization grant aid or any other numerous other programs that we lose money in, because there'll be a hole there to fill, and it's not going to be a good hole if the taxpayers have to pick up the difference. But most of all, it's not going to lower your property taxes. Claremont has, where I'm from, Claremont, New Hampshire, has the highest property tax rate in the state of New Hampshire. So they're using that as a selling point. Oh, you're going to have money brought in here through a revenue source, and it's going to help fund programs. Yeah, it will help fund programs, but it's not going to fund them all. And even if it funds the program, it's not going to lower the tax rate now. The only way you can lower the tax rate is to bring in more business, more jobs, more companies, and cut the spending and downsize and streamline spending. Otherwise, you're going to be left with this huge budget and a big tax bill. And that's what I tried to run home last night. I tried to tell people that there would really be a problem with adopting any lottery, so hopefully the people will vote it down. They probably think, well, this is a small area and we're in need of revenue funding, so this would be an ideal place. But ideal or not, there's a tremendous downside when you're dealing with small businesses, when you're dealing with fraternal organizations, when you're dealing with high taxes, when you're dealing with a limited number of students, and when you're dealing with a full-time program. People just cannot afford all this, and people are not going to go out and spend money that they don't have, especially at a bar, when they can go out to eat. So I don't think this is going to work in the long run. And if it is adopted, again, down the road, just as we have this year, you have that $1.2 million funding that's missing in the education budget because state grant aid was reduced. So is that going to happen with kindergarten? And if it does happen with kindergarten, who's going to make up the difference? Again, you're talking cutting expenses, cutting back the programs, or having the local taxpayers pay for it. So hopefully this will not be adopted. Hopefully people will see it for what it is. And I know the governor has been pushing this program, but he did talk about grant aid funding too, but I guess that didn't work out. But hopefully they come up with another solution, because this certainly in the long run is not going to work out. It's another way of bribing people, saying, if you adopt this full-time kindergarten program, well, we will give you a funding source, and that funding source will be another lottery ticket game or another mini casino game. So it sounds good. It sounds exciting. Oh, there's more money. And the representative from the state of New Hampshire presented facts from the state of New Hampshire revenue sources stating that this will possibly bring in $43 million overall in revenue to the state of New Hampshire. But the $43 million is not going to come to any local city or town. That's overall in a whole state of New Hampshire, and that has to be divided up, has to be spread out, and then you have to pay out to all the people who won. So you're paying out at least 70% of the money that you're taking in. And maybe 1% is going to Health and Human Services and a small percentage going to administrative cost. And then they're saying maybe 20-something percent, 27% approximately, goes to fund education, and then a portion goes into the Education Trust Fund. But that's very small in comparison to the overall amount of what the taxpayers pay, or what the taxpayers have paid in the past. And yeah, we didn't have full-time kindergarten in the past, but now we have it. That's still another program. That's still another cost. And KENO is not going to fix the situation. And it may even make the situation worse, because we're going to be dependent on more money. And possibly in the future, that money won't be there. So you have to have a definite plan. You have to have a definite funding source to make anything work. And gambling with education is not the way to do it. It hasn't worked in the past, and I don't believe it will work in the future. But you be the judge of that. Again, it will be on our Claremont, New Hampshire ballot, along with other cities and towns, on Tuesday, November 7th. And there will be a question that will be asked, shall this municipality adopt KENO 603? And it will be yes or no. So turn out and vote, and get your friends and your family members that are registered, or if they're not registered, get them registered to vote Tuesday, November 7th, because this does have an impact on funding of education, and this is one of the most prominent issues facing our town and other towns in the state of New Hampshire. And I thank you for listening to this broadcast. There will be more in the future, and perhaps I'll have a broadcast on the council candidates that will be on our local ballot as well. And you can always find me on Twitter at Cindy Tea Time. You can find me on YouTube, Cynthia Howard, or Facebook. And I will have a short video on Facebook and YouTube and some of the other social media like LinkedIn, if you're on that, or Google Plus, which will give my little speech at the City Council meeting last night on Thursday the 19th on why I didn't think it was a good idea to adopt KENO. So remember, Tuesday, November 7th. And I thank you for listening. Again, this is Cynthia Howard, your host, and I will be coming to you again as soon as I can. Thank you.